brilliant company that is helping. And basically, he's filled out massive grants for groups like the NHS. He was telling me the other day, over £1 million to get some of their boilers replaced. So he worked with us early on here at the centre to try and get a bike grant, early lockdown. So yes, a lot of experience there, a lot of wisdom. I will hand over to the giant of advice on funding, Henry. Thank you very much for coming. Lovely jubbly. Fire away.
Thanks, Phoenix. I'm going to try and share my screen, so bear with. I'm not sure how you do that. Apart from Phoenix is always looking for grants. How many other people are in the process of writing an application at the moment? Be good to get a feel for that. Hands up, or let's have a look. Anyone got their hand up? Yeah, so Abingdon is writing a grant. Yeah, Malvern.
And Swindon, I just on the phone at the moment, can't put my hand up.
Okay, and Swindon, great. Okay, good. So it is relevant. Because there aren't, I've been doing a bit of searching this afternoon. There's not an awful lot of grants about, considering it's a climate emergency, and all this build back better rhetoric. Okay, cool. So let's go to the first slide. That's what we're going to talk about. That's not me, by the way. I don't know who that is in the corner, but it could be my alter ego. Do you want to do the next slide, Ruth? Can you go on to that one?
Yep.
Okay, so I think the key thing about grant funding is the grant funders know exactly what they want to fund, and it's a bit like a job application, in that they really want you to mirror what you're going to present with what their objectives are, which kind of feels obvious, but sometimes you can just have this project, you think it's a baby and it's going to be amazing, but unless you put in the key words in there and the key outcomes and deliverables and scale, then you can sort of miss a trick. And it's quite interesting, this thing about scale, because the National Lottery just did a climate action fund, and it was £100 million fund, and they released £19.5 million in projects, and they only funded 23 projects. So there was an average, that's almost an average of £1 million per project, which if you've just taken over an interim building or you're on the high street, it's unlikely they're going to get £1 million. Because I think there's been quite a lot of criticism of the National Lottery Fund. So that's important to understand the funding, it's the right size, and to get the objectives absolutely clear. And often it's broken down in this field to things like food, energy, transportation, clean energy. So don't say you're going to try and answer all of them. Normally they offer one or two, pick at least two. But if you're looking at smaller funding pots, try and be realistic, because if you're going to try and say, I'll do everything, then they're going to go, well, you can't do everything. It's really important as well. I was speaking to a lady from Kingston yesterday, and I looked at her grant bid, and in the executive summary, it didn't mention that Kingston had declared a climate emergency, and even she wasn't aware what the climate emergency target was, or if they'd set one. And I just Googled it and found out it was 2039, and it was net zero. So it's really important to put the context that this is what our borough is doing. Yeah. So the councils want people to help them out, because they're all strapped, and they've got this net zero commitment that's been sitting there for 2 years and nothing's happened. I'm just going to charge my phone. Can you?
Net zero 2050, is that? Are they their commitment?
Can you still hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, a lot of them are to 2030. That was what the majority of local authorities have set as a target. I think the more realistic, Kingston have said 2041 or 2039, because if you really are going to do net zero and your council's responsible for 50,000 tons of CO2, that means if they reduce their footprint to 30,000 tons of CO2, they've got to buy credits at £12 a ton, which is hundreds of thousands of pounds, which they're buying on credits. And they don't even have any money to put insulation in, let alone to buy credits, which is a nebulous and lots of criticism. Obviously, there are good UN approved credits, gold standard ones. So really important to time what your local authority is doing. They're the people who have voted in power. They want to engage. They've said these commitments are there, and they need to have the Climate Emergency Centre to align with those commitments. They'll have probably done a lot of consultation as well. A lot of the boroughs I've spoken to have done consultation events. And again, that you can pivot that or reflect that in your bids. So the other thing I wanted to say on what types of projects have you done before, apart from the scale, which the Climate Action Fund have done really big projects. You can also steal a lot of ideas there, or just like the wording. So there was one, Manchester's done a Manchester Climate Change Assembly, which is all about resilience and communities. There's like Zero Carbon Middlesbrough, Sheffield Climate Alliance. See what the other bodies have done and what nuances they've done. They're all there as case studies because the National Lottery Fund is highlighting them all, putting them as case studies. I've put public health there because this is quite a good trick. I worked in public health for 5 years at Hackney because the public health remit is now with local authorities, and there's a framework called the Public Health Outcomes Framework, and every local authority is ranked against every other local authority, and they've got metrics on well-being, mental health, jobs. I'm pretty sure they've even got some metrics on carbon, climate change adaptation. So any of the smarter you can be in tying in to as many as the council network and targets that they've got, the more likely the council will be your partner, giving up space and just making a much stronger bid. Because I think what tends to happen is you rattle off all these community groups, gardening network or food group, but if you haven't got the weight of the council behind you, then it's just a really big stakeholder. And so the public health framework is also matched with like the hospitals. I've just written the green plan for Croydon, and they are, it's no longer looking. So there's a statement from Great Ormond Street. It's no longer treating the individual. It's treating the environment the individual is brought up in, because Great Ormond Street are so aware about air pollution, and they can't just keep treating air pollution. They've got to get a greener borough. So if you've got quite a good forward-thinking NHS hospital there, make links with them. They've got money, they've got abilities to sort of do networking, do public transport initiatives, greener initiatives. So that's really useful. That kind of leads in with what differentiates your CEC from existing models in the community. This is quite a hard one because the climate emergency centres, there is a real differentiation here, and I think the strongest differentiation, rather than just green community groups, is climate resilience. I think it's so important. That's what I call the company, the Climate Resilience Company, because the time for mitigation of cutting CO2 emissions, we kind of missed that. We missed that boat. We've now really got to think like Kingston, like Kensington, like Portobello. Our houses, our streets, our businesses are flooding now. Like every time it rains now, it's monsoon, it's a downpour. People's lives are going to be massively affected. It's one of the biggest mental health issues you can get is to have your home flooded or your business flooded. So make your bid really pertinent. What are the issues? If you haven't got flooding risk, is it social housing? I don't know where your bag is. No, it's not in here. Is it social housing and okay? Is it social housing and fuel poor? Is it insulation? Is it flooding? What are the really? Is it job creation? What really is going to strike a note with the funders and the people who you're going to build your networks and alliances with? And also, if you've already got some funding in place, how can you build on that to make the project better? Because I mean, there's one program at the moment which the National Lottery is doing. It's only £10,000. It's like, well, it's not a lot of money, but if you can say, well, I've got £5,000 in this bit, and we're going to bring it together, and we'll do this better sum of the parts, and we're going to increase, and that's going to help. The other really important thing, of course, is outcomes, because this is a really, really important bit place to the bid. You've got to be really specific, not just say, yeah, we're going to hold lots of events around food networks and sustainable food, and we're going to hold lots of events. Like, how many are you going to hold? I'm going to hold 4, like once a quarter. How many circular economy car boot sales are you going to do? I'm going to do one every week. How many jobs will that create as the funding for that? What opportunities management? Well, who's going to do the training? How much is that role going to be? Absolutely spell it out. We did a project called Dalston Angels, where we were doing free carbon audits of pensioners and people on low income. And the outreach you got from that was amazing, because you were changing people's lives just by spending a couple of hours with them at their homes. And I think if you can say, not only will the Climate Emergency Centre be a hub, but it's also going to outreach and link up to other networks and to other, hard to reach groups. Fuel poverty at the moment is a massive thing. The whole Insulate Britain, the councils have their targets to solve this. Okay, next slide, please, Ruth. So we talked a bit about the language. So I've just pulled these 2 statements of bids that were funded. So this first one's off Manchester. I mean, you can read this, but you can see it's really strong, compelling language. And they're not just saying, oh, we're going to reduce CO2 emissions. We're going to reduce it by 50% over 5 years. And I mean, they haven't put the baseline there, but the point is, if you're putting a metric like that, someone must have calculated the base. I also like the way it says, at the same time as helping them to achieve other local priorities. So it's not, we're going to tell Manchester how it's going to work. We're going to engage with what the local priorities are, and that means consultation, that means embrace and actually get motivated by this area, which they can come together and learn about resilience and hear tough stories about the narrative of climate change and the climate crisis. Then it's not going to work. So tying with that, and then even just on food, all the climate emergency centres, of course, food is going to be a massive issue with supply chains, with bread baskets no longer able to export food. Really linking it to health, linking it to understanding where food comes from, linking it to fuel poverty. If you're buying fast food every day, it costs a lot of money. If you do basic cook and eat skills, you produce food which will last you for 3 days. It's going to be cheaper, it's going to be tastier if you use good ingredients. You won't be generating as much food waste. So really go deeper, as opposed to just sort of the high level, yeah, we've got a food network and we're going to do that. And that ties back to the deliverables. Next slide, please, Ruth. So then I just thought, because you're all doing this and you're all doing good jobs and making the application look good, where are some current funding areas at the moment? And it's a tricky time. This is a tricky time of year, because most funding is sort of, money is released at the end of a financial year, and that's when they know how much money there'll be. So they'll tend to release the grants in April, give you sort of 12 weeks to apply, and then you've got to spend it by the following year, and then maybe release it in October. And that's the way it is with a lot of the the London Mayor funds at the moment. There's nothing that's live at the moment. And also with the climate network or climate action funding from National Lottery, the next phase will be next year. So the funding opportunity at the moment for the National Lotteries are Together for Our Planet, and it's only £1,000 to £10,000. That's live, and you've got till mid-November to apply for that. And again, that's based on food, energy, transport, education, resilience. So you pick a couple. Grantsonline.org, this is really good. Some of the content you have to do is subscribe, but it's only £99 for the year. And there's a lot of good opportunities there. Things like, there's a massive fund with Aviva. So the insurance companies, the big corporations, they want to be seen being green. but they can't just create projects. It's difficult to find the projects. So I would really spend the £99 for the year and log on to that site, because I looked at one opportunity was available, which I just missed the date for, but there were 5 others totally relevant to the space: sustainability, climate change, adaptation, but you couldn't see unless you would pay to subscribe. This was a good one, Action Funder. So I logged in and said, oh, I'm a charity, or I'm a climate resilience company, but looking to do good work in the community. And they're like a fast track grant funding. So you just say, yeah, I want to do stuff around community, environment, food and energy. I've got a few employees. I've got a registered company name, and they say, we'll ping you when we've got a funder. So then when I looked at what they're actually funding, I was like, oh, it looks like it's all Oxford. Maybe it's just an Oxford thing. 5 minutes later, I got a ping saying, right, Camden wants to do something around Bloomsbury and Euston about better community resilience, reinvigorating our high streets, and there's £30,000 available. It's like, what? They literally contact you. So that was a good one. So they come to you with the models. Then these two are a couple of big ones. So these two were linked with the Manchester bid, which got 2.1 million. That Manchester commission, absolutely crazy. Plus, they got funding from the Garfield Weston Foundation and the Waits Family Enterprises Trust. These random groups, but these groups are obviously wealthy families or funding bodies, and they are constantly funding projects. So that's what I found after sort of just looking around for a few hours. And then this is a nice one. And post and work with businesses, and I think it's important that supporting businesses helps businesses. That helps employment and goes back to jobs, because jobs are really important, linking it through to job creation. So the government has grasped that we need to do circular economy stuff. So this one is in London, but it acts as a hub, and they will offer free one-day surveys, 12 hours, I think, so we'll be a couple of days on site, and they'll work with the business to look at all their processes, not just do like an energy audit. How can they reduce waste and stop this linear economy of extraction, process, waste? Go to extraction, process, reuse, reinvigorate, refurbish, reuse, again, to then make it a circular economy. So that's quite a nice thing, again, for you to offer, which is thinking outside the box when you're putting yourself as a hub. So that's all I had, really. So I think I want to open up to discussion.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Henry. Fantastic. A wealth of experience there. So if there's any questions, it really helps me as facilitating if you use the reactions thing down the bottom, and you can raise a hand like that. You can tell who's first, second and third. You can do traditionally sticking your hand up. So are there any particular questions for Henry there?
There's a hand up somewhere, Phoenix.
Oh, good. Well, yeah.
I think that's Ruth.
That's Ruth. So Ruth, you go for your
she's my plant. She's my plant.
No, there is a couple of things I wanted to ask. So in terms of the making, what have you got that's unique or different? So I'm just wondering, because I know nothing about fundraising, so it's really useful. Thanks, Henry.
Thank you.
But a couple of the things about the Climate Emergency Centre project is that they're networked up across the country so they can talk to each other. And apparently there are regional funds. So linking in with those climate emergency centres in your region and saying, we as a region, our centres are regional and this is what we want to do. Is that a useful thing? And secondly, one of the other things that climate emergency centres are about meeting social community needs, but in an environment. So we're trying to kind of bring in the social and the environmental so that they're more connected up, which linked a bit with what Manchester was saying in one of your slides. But I don't know, is that right? Is that a good thing?
So that's a really good point. So when I was searching for grants, first of all, you search under like sustainability, climate emergency, climate resilience. But then you think, well, hang on, what are the big words at the moment? What was everyone going on about? And it's, build back better, build back bitter, build back Britain. This is Boris with all his trying to be funny. But so Build Back Better, when I searched that, Gloucestershire were offering up to 500 grand to try and reinvigorate their high streets. Yeah. So that's a lot of money, £500,000. And again, if you've got a hub which is offering coffee mornings, knit and natter, food, regeneration, repair, that's what they want. They want people to come back to the high street, stop being online and you know, going to the out-of-store towns. So that's an example of being a bit wider with your search, and there is local and regional funding.
Great, nice one, Henry. So Joe 1, then Sean in 2, Kingston to Worthing. It's like University Challenge here. Over to Kingston.
Hello, sorry, I have a very loud toddler in the background. I hope you can hear
Hi,
me.
Joe.
Hello, hi, thanks for that, really helpful. My question was, we're in the process of setting up as a CIC, so community interest company. Are you aware of whether that affects the success of any applications to grant making bodies? Or I think
it should be fine, because that's obviously not for profit. And I was speaking to Kingston today, and they think it's going to take like 8 months to become a charity. And, you know, it's an emergency, isn't it? And then are you even going to be made that status? So I think with this, this action funder, I mean, I didn't even say I'm a charity. I just said I'm a company with charitable aims, because I'm working in sustainability. So I think if you're a CIC, it should be fine. I think, and if that's the easiest thing to set up, then yeah, go for it.
Okay, over to Sean in Worthing.
Hi, yeah, thanks, Henry. Yeah, we just started at our first meeting today, funny enough, and looking to set up a CIC. But I've been involved with funding before for local village halls and stuff, and I was just going to add that, I mean, we're in West Sussex, but I think most county councils anyway, on their website, if you dig deep enough, you'll find a list of people like West. I mean, I've come across the Garfield Western, for instance, before, and they got tons of money, but most people don't know they're there. And as I said, most councils have a string of people. I mean, you have to laboriously go through them, and they don't all fund the same sort of things, but it's worth a trawl through, and generally you'll find something that fits what you're trying to do. Definitely, really good advice.
Cool. Over to Vicky in sunny Taunton.
Hi there. Yeah, a couple of other sources of funding, depending on what you're looking for. If you Google Charity Excellence Framework, they have a funding finder database that you can search. The other thing that's quite useful and free, because a lot of these, you know, funding grant sites are you have to pay for, but if you go on the Charity Commission website and do a search, and you can do an advanced search, you can put in various you know, keywords, as you say, and come up. It's geographical as well, so you can search by your county.
Vicky, was that Charity Excellence, did you say?
Yeah, the Charity Excellence Framework. If you Google Charity Excellence, you'll come up with it. You subscribe to it, and they'll send updates and things like that. And again,
excellence. Yeah, thanks.
And of course, depends what you're trying to do. If you're, you know, you want to be specific really in what you're trying to fund. But if you're trying to do project funding, obviously, if you're going to do something artistic, then the Arts Council, or if you're doing something with heritage, then the Heritage Lottery Fund. There are other lottery funds available, and the Arts Council specifically as well will fund. You don't have to be an arts organisation, but an artist, or even someone like me who's a museum curator, can apply for a project through that fund now, and they have 15,000 up to 100,000.
Right.
15,000 don't need match funding, but obviously that's with an arts project, and you have to tackle their online application form.
Okay, I'm just going to check timelines here a sec, folks, with Henry, because
I'm fine because I didn't have to babysit in the end, so I'm fine.
Community
it all got too complicated.
We set something up years ago, early activism, called Environmental Parenting Network, so we can continue to do actions with young children, and and all support each other on a bit of babysitting. Moving swiftly on, so that's good. We've got more time with the fabulous Henry. Just to mention this point before going to 1, 2, 3, Henry is available for, linked consultations to your different individual groups. You can chat to him later. I'm sure he can give us contact details. So he will help some of your groups fill out grants for a certain arrangement that you want to make with him, a certain fee. So let's take him up on that. As a wealth of experience there.
I'm very cheap.
Very good rates, very good rates. A lot of knowledge. Okay,
It's mates rates.
Deborah in Bristol, number 1. Ruth, I think, were you number 2? And then John in Oswestry, 3. Over. Deborah.
Hi. Okay. I just wanted to ask if you've got some top tips to put in and not to put into funding bids, like how you say something, I mean, obviously don't be apologetic, but.
Well, I mean, I talked about that with the language, about really being really specific, and really, it's really about outcomes. So when I was reviewing public health bids, and you might be doing a project around mental health, they want numbers, because they need to be hitting, 500 people this year will benefit from being in your community garden, or you know what I mean. So really, because don't be vague is the tip. And it's quite easy to be vague. You think we're going to do all these wonderful things, and also don't try and do everything. So I think, if you've got a chance and there's 5 things to bid for: food, energy, water, waste, climate, just say, we're just going to focus on food, for this bid. Because as soon as you dilute it, if you think there's a certain sort of scoring or weighting for each element, you're making it more difficult for you. They want to know that that's what you're going to focus on, and just be really. Relating it to the severity of the climate issues as well, and local, like we talk about, there's flooding in Kensington at the moment. Then give an example. Recently we've seen this flooding. We know that residents and businesses are upset that there isn't enough adaptation. We're going to teach and educate and provide skills, skills to actually retrofit buildings to support businesses. So make it relevant. Don't try and promise everything. Just really try and tick the box. It's like, it's like when you're doing a job application, the answers are there. They say what skill we're looking for, this skill set. I just cut and paste that skill set and say extra skills and just put them all there. Because they're just ticking them off. They just want to tick them off. So even if you're not sure what it means, decentralized energy, look it up. And so when they say, what's your experience? Like, oh yeah, right, yeah, I did that.
Okay, thanks.
All right, over
So
to.
you're kind of making up the numbers, aren't you?
Well, you're not. Well,
Presumably
that's the
you
thing.
have to kind of qualify it a bit.
Yes, it's. Don't make up the numbers. Think about, well, look, what realistically can we do? So, okay, let's do once every 3 months. We'll do a car boot sale, or maybe we can do that once a month, and we expect to get 50 people to come along. And what could 50 people do? They could each sell 50 quid worth of stuff, and that stuff that's not going to landfill. And how much would that stuff weigh? It's like, okay, maybe they bring 20 kilos of stuff. You could say we might divert 5 tons of waste from landfill. Yeah, that should you see what I mean? And what's 5 tons of landfill waste mean? Well, that would give off 10 tons of methane, and then methane is 27 times more potent than CO2. So actually, we've saved 400 tons of CO2. Have you? Yeah, because once a month we're going to do a car boot sale. I'm like, oh, I thought you were just doing a car boot sale. Yeah, but otherwise I was going to throw it away, wasn't I? So see what I mean? Then they're like, okay, good, right. And then if you do any more, you go, actually, you know what? We actually had twice as many people, and we did it every 2 weeks.
Cool. Moving on to Ruth.
Yeah, I really like that example, actually. Yeah, you do that. Shows how much change you're making, how much difference you're making.
Well, that's what they want to hear, isn't it? Because also they don't really know.
No, yeah,
the funders don't know sometimes. You have to educate the funders.
I was going to. This is a question from Sue in Bath. She asked in the chat. She asked, "Is it possible to get funding for core type costs such as insurance, publicity, etc.?"
Yeah, I think it is. Insurance, obviously permanent posts, some bit of capital. So normally it's quite specific. Normally, if you look at the small print, they do tell you quite clearly what we won't fund. But you know, that's a level of overheads, but it needs to be proportionate to the whole project, isn't it? If you're looking at £10,000, I'm not going to say, can I take £9,000 for my insurance and my person to work at the front of the shop? It's like, hang on, there's only £1,000 left for a project. So I think it has to be reasonable to the sum that you're putting in for.
Okay, I hope that helps. Over to John in sunny Oswestry.
Sorry, we're in the position really. We've just taken over a charity. We don't have a building, but we took. It's not a charity. It's I can't remember what it's called now. Community Benefit Society. But they already had some grant funding that they claimed. We had a short period of time in which to use it for premises. We've decided in Oswestry that we're not going to be able to get a free building, so we're going to need to pay. And we had a bit of money, but we ran out of time to use it before we could get a building. And so now we want to sort of apply for more money. We're worried. Some of us are worried about taking one of these and maybe not being able to pay for it for people who make these and not trying to attract funding for those kinds of things. I'm concerned that it's going to be difficult to get money just for paying rent. But that's what we really want, is a bit of assurance that we're not going to end up liable for lots of costs in the future. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I almost think that's, again, it's about proportionate use of the funds. And it does tie into the whole CEC business model about this rate release. And Phoenix is probably better on that. And she probably will be most of the chat later, because having the interim use of a building does rely on the model working, and there can be delays, and it could be that you're going to be thrown because you can't pay the electricity bill, and that might have been a promise from the housing provider, you know. So I think that's probably one for Phoenix.
Look, just briefly to say, you know, the aim of this model is to recognise the massive amount of community environmental work each of these projects does, and if the council provides the 100% business rates, then you know, you don't pay any rent. So the aim is to, you know, not pay any rent. Also, in the lease negotiations, we try and build something into it. You won't always get it, depends how tight or not the developers are. And just a reminder, as Mary's up next to speak, to remind everyone, if you are negotiating a lease, please check with somebody legally qualified to check through whatever meanwhile lease you might be signing, and also with myself and Linda, who's got a much more experience. I think Mary knows some people who can help and advise. But basically, the aim of this model is not to pay rent, and to negotiate during those 1 or 2 months of meanwhile lease negotiation to get the, if they're saving £100,000 on the business rates, they should be able to put £5,000–10,000 towards the electric bill. So what we you negotiate a cap, basically, that there's only a certain amount. If you go over that, then you have to pay it. You know, the aim is to try and get them to pay utilities as well, but that won't always work. Depends how tight your, how much money they're saving, and negotiations with developers. Hope that helps. John, is that okay? You're muted, right?
I think I'm going to have to talk to you another time, Phoenix, about what our plans are, if that's okay.
I'm available for one-to-ones at very reasonable rates. You just have to send people to come and help with community projects or do online help and support. Over. We mind a bit of money eventually. Anyway, it's about the community and the environment. Over to Mary.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to pick up on what someone said. Sorry, I've forgotten who it was, about not being apologetic. I think that's really important, because I think we sort of go, oh, can we have some money, please? And I think it's really good to be passionate and show your passion. Go in and virtually sort of thump the table and say, this is what's happening, this is what we need to do, you know, rather than saying we are an organisation that does blah, blah, you know, sort of go straight in and really show that there's a need and that you're meeting the need and they must fund you. Henry, do you agree with that? That's my view, but what would you say on that?
Yeah, I do, and that's why I say it's so important about the language. And it's a different language that you would use when just talking about your project to your peers. You know, it's that example of the Manchester language was really strong, wasn't it? It was like an elevator pitch. You know, you've got 2 minutes to sell your project, you need to choose those words really carefully. And it might be that, you know, when I've reviewed bids, I mean, that lottery bid, they said there were 632 bids, yeah, and they funded 20. If you haven't been excited in the first paragraph, and bear in mind how long it must take to actually go through that, you're just going to skim through, isn't it? It's like it's like 7 seconds you judge a person, and that's why you get the elevator pitch. So you need a really, really relevant initial statement that demonstrates that passion and the deliverables and the capacity in one paragraph. And that's what that Manchester slide did. It's like, this is who we are. This is how we're going to cut it. We've listened to people. It's a climate crisis. We've got the networks. Give us the funding. Let's get on with it.
Nice. Stress the urgency.
I think, sorry, if I can just
Mary.
Oh, what was I going to say? Yeah, give them an easy ride. You know, it's like doing a driving test or something. Give the examiner an easy ride. Make it easy for them to say yes.
Absolutely.
I think that, yeah. That's it.
Okay, over to Stephen in the land of the Bard, Stratford-upon-Avon.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for a really helpful presentation. I'm just wondering, you know, I know someone who does grant applications a lot, and just a scenario that a best case scenario, I guess, that arises in some of the conversations we have. What if you apply for 2 grants simultaneously for the same stuff? Like, you know, you're going to do the same events, you're going to have the same costs and so on, and you're successful in both. How do you handle that? I mean, I guess you want to keep the money and kind of divert it to something else if you can, but how would you normally handle that kind of situation?
The issue is you've got too much money.
Best case scenario, yeah.
Oh no, we've gone from no money, working our arse off in this climate emergency, to now I've got to do twice as many car boot sales, twice as much networking. I mean, that's a nice situation to be in, but the funding, if it's reasonable but still urgent and outcome focused, has to be scalable. So all of these projects want legacy. They want to set something up, and then when you go away, when the funding's spent, it's still to all work. So it just means you could potentially put more. You could let the funders know, look, we've got another funding for similar outcomes, because like this is what we do. It's not like, oh, they're just writing this bid to try and get some money. This is what this climate emergency centre is doing. And if it's capacity, so then you can put more into capacity building, more into whatever that funder you feel that's their focus. So great position to be in. It's, yeah, just you can just do more of what your centre wants to be doing. It shouldn't be a problem, because as long as you can provide the outcome report at the end of the period, say you've spent the money, give them a beautiful case study, that's all they want. So there's definitely not a conflict of interest. People are putting grants out all the time. I mean, this is what that's why the most expensive role at a charity is the person who's writing the funding bids, isn't it? That's the role where they go, right, we need someone full-time just sits there and writes funding bids. Because that will bring it in, isn't it? So anytime there could be no money, or then suddenly 4 bids come in. And then when 4 bids come in, you go, right, let's build capacity. Yeah, because part of that role, the bid has to pay for the person's time. That's why I'm thinking with Phoenix, I haven't told you this, Phoenix, but we need to think much bigger, looking at the escalation. Look at the awards. It was an average of £1 million. We don't mess around going, oh, Hove's doing this and Manchester's doing that. We say, no, we're a network of 12 centres. We need 120 grand per centre. Yeah, we're linking this up. It's a national framework. And we go, bang, there's 1.2 million quid. Otherwise, we're going to be writing the same little report 50 times, chasing 10 grand, paying someone 250 quid to write it. So they've already taken away 2%. So,
right. Me and you, Henry, you and Linda have got to do a kind of 3-way or 1-to-1 fairly much soon.
Yeah.
to get all this worked out. So just a few points from me, and then I'm conscious of 15 minutes.
Then I need
precious time, so I'll come over to Joe and Sean next. Just a few bits from me, just to say, I'm an amateur grant writer. We've been doing it over the last 15 years. We used to get something regularly from the Network for Social Change. They've now given that to another group. We used to get quite a bit regularly from Lush. Lush do up to a £10,000, and they support unincorporated groups. They've funded tons and tons of protest groups, from DPAC, Disabled People's Action Group, to anti-GMO, to all sorts of hunt sabs, to all sorts of climate camps on into XR. And Lush is one of the simplest forms to fill out. We got turned down early in lockdown because they've just come out of not having much money after lockdown, but I've just heard that Manchester Climate Hive just got a Lush grant. I'm a slightly miffed grant. I'm happy for them, but basically I've got to apply again. We do need to do a whole CEC UK wide, and we need to dream big and think big. Our planet is on fire. These buildings are fire stations. Speaking as a great grandson of 2 Dublin Fire Brigade station masters, these places are urgently needed. We need the fire hoses, we need the fire stations, and we need proper funding. And maybe if some of us could go to Glasgow and push hard for that, we should be getting funding up in the millions, not scrabbling around for 5 and 10 grand, which is big in my book, but we need to think bigger. Just a couple of quick bits before going over to the others is, over the years, I've thought of a recipe that a lot of these grants are actually 6 main questions, and they vary slightly, maybe 1 or 2 of the grants. And what I wanted to do was create a template, which I've done with the Lush grant. But basically, there are about 5 or 6 main questions that are asked a lot in a lot of these grants, and they are: who are you? What's the name of your group? And what entity are you? What do you or your project do? How are you going to do it? So breaking it down into steps over the next 6 months, over the next year, we will do A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who are the beneficiaries or the targets that you are reaching out to in your community? What demographic, etc. And the last, and sometimes the fun bit, is what would you spend the money on? And you break it down into 10, 20, 30 grand or whatever. And that's in some ways the fun bit, dreaming what you would spend this money on. So answer those 5 questions and do a template, and then see which ones they apply to on other ones to speed the process up. I will come over to Joe from the Hive in Kingston, and I think Sean was maybe next, if this might drop his hand. Joe, sunny Kingston. I hear there's a lot of progress in Kingston. We're hearing a few good reports.
Yeah, well, the name is hot off the press, so we just decided that this afternoon. Lots of voting, very democratic. So yeah, we've been pretty busy, but yeah, it does feel a bit slow sometimes. We kind of touched on this, so I hope it's not repeating anything, but do we have any idea of the success of asking for money for kind of recurrent costs, like business rates? Hopefully we won't have to pay any or much, or recurrent costs relating to utilities or anything else, or is it a grant's really geared towards kind of very specific sort of frontline kind of things? It's kind of going back to the overheads issue, I suppose.
A level of sort of stability. I mean, you'd have to look at the small print, really. Again, it's about, is it 5% of that grant will cover overheads? I think if it's like that, that's okay. Electricity bill is £200 a month. It's a £10,000 project. 6 months is £1,000. Okay, but then it's, do you know what I mean? You're taking, because the electricity bill isn't really going to achieve outcomes.
Yeah.
And any money like that is taking it away. So I think that's the struggle.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I get that.
Okay, fun seekers. Was Sean in Worthing? Did you have a hand up, or have you?
Yeah, sorry, it was only really a practical point back to Stephen, really, because we had exactly that problem before. We applied for loads of grants, because once you've done one, as you said, the questions are the same, so it's not big overhead to do a second and a third. And don't worry about winning 2 of them, because there's a acceptance process you have to go through. So if they are duplicates, you don't have to accept them all. So you don't have to, you're not taking on more obligations than you have to, sort of thing. But it'd be nice to have that happen.
Oh, just on timelines, I think we're 8 minutes to the hour, and we try and. All right. Well,
Thank you for the opportunity.
So thank you very much, Henry. Really useful. Really, now just to pump yourself a little bit there at the end, you are willing to help groups write some bids. So there's something called like an independent fundraiser. So do you want to put your details in the chat, an email? And
yeah, I think Ruth put the email in the chat. It's the Climate Resilience Company @gmail.com. And I'll just do like a small fee, because what I'll do is it'll probably take me a couple of days, because I really like to get into the background policy framework and then spit out how the project relates to it. So, but you know, we're all trying to be, you know, not for profit and stuff. So yeah, if it is an area where you'd like some support with, I'm happy to help.
Cool. Thank you so much, Henry. That's really got the.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck with it all, everyone. Doing good work. Build those fire stations.
Thanks, Henry. Take care.
Cheers.
Big up, Henry. He's very tall, really, but he's
very tall.
He's a giant. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
mate. It's brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. All right, fun seekers. So we've got about 7 minutes to 8. Is there anyone who hasn't spoken and wants to say something, and then we might do some quick roundup checkouts? But is everyone okay to carry on till 5 minutes past 8, just so we can hear a little bit from each other? Dare I say 10 past, but we'll see. 10 past, we okay? Kestrel, whereabouts in the country are you?
So I'm in London. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
As I'm on a phone. I'm in London, Ealing, and I'm hoping to set something up, but I'm really starting from the ground. So what I have heard is, you know, there's people in the area who would be interested in doing something in a climate emergency centre. But I think what I'd like to do initially is just see if there's someone who could come and speak to a selected bunch of Ealing people, just to inspire them with what can be done and how it can be done. There's sort of the very basics of, and I don't know if there's anyone who's...
Yeah, so...
Ruth, brain for the operation.
Yeah, so Phoenix and I do that. We have done it a few times in different areas now, just to kind of get that initial interest. And I know Sue's here from Bath. We did it in Bath and in Abingdon, and did we do in Bristol? Yes, we did in Barnet, and also no, maybe not Oswestry. But we come and do a presentation. So just you can then we set a date, put something out on Eventbrite, and share it with all the groups, social and community, local area, and individuals who might be interested.
Yeah,
they come along, and Phoenix and I will do a presentation on what CECs are all about, how they work, what those initial steps are to get going, and what sort of support
out
there, and kind of get you linked in. And it's kind of a good way to get energized and get working group. So do get in touch with Phoenix.
Contacts. Yeah, I've seen Phoenix in the CEC chat, so I could connect directly, I guess, through that on Telegram.
Definitely, we're up for doing that. You know, it's a 20-minute presentation with slides, and then
awesome.
It's amazing how it's bringing together an alliance of groups. It's worked more than the dream we ever could have hoped. That groups like Swindon have got an alliance of 25 different environment and community groups, and Guildford didn't get a building for a year, but they did a massive amount of foundation work. Now they're opening an amazing place in the high street, and got Dean of the local university and all sorts of groups offering to help. So just a little facilitation skills. Anybody who hasn't spoken already, it's a useful thing to remember in meetings. Anyone who hasn't spoken already who wants to say something or share something? Okie dokie. So I think what we're going to do is short checkouts with...
Wait a minute, Nadia just wants to say something.
Okay, Nadia, with a little bit in update about anything you want to say. So, you know, about your area or group. Nadia.
I'm like racking my brains. We've got no council buildings. We've got none. The council have sold all their assets, and we're doing all these events, which is good, you know, and slowly, but I'm really feeling like we need, I don't know, like another model or another route to get. We were looking at potentially private rentals, but you know, without a steady funding stream, it's just not something that anyone will take on. No commercial landlord will take it on. So I'm just looking for another way to get a building. Any ideas?
I would talk on the commercial level. Linda is way better on me than breaking things down, and she's American, so a lot more commercial than I've been over the years. Community, but she would break it down into you sell 100 coffees at £2 a week, and then you do a cinema night that's £3 times this, and you add up, and there is the potential to generate some funds from these spaces that could cover a low rent. But really, I don't fully want to get into that model. The aim is you're doing a lot of free community work, so they should be given the building for free. Churches is what comes up for
Can
me
I just
there.
say something?
750.
Churches. Can I just say something?
Nadia,
That it's a good idea. It's a good idea to check out what your council's policy is on business rates. So I'm in Bristol, and small businesses don't pay business rates, but I haven't actually found out yet. I think that when a property is empty, you have to pay business rates. So then you've got some negotiating power. And with the big buildings, they have a big liability to business rates. So that's the stuff that you've got in your thing, Phoenix, you know, your sort of, what do you call it?
Business rate model.
Yeah. You know, because then it's worth their while getting involved with you.
Yeah,
I think you have to be willing to do short term, like say that you know you'll get out in a month notice.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so one of something that a few groups have done, and I think Abingdon might be one of them, I can't recall, is sometimes people, and I know Godalming have as well, if you might know a local business owner or property owner of some kind, and they're using the building, but there's part of that building that they're not using, and they will let you use that part, that you turn that space into a climate emergency centre, and then as you get set up and start doing things, it becomes easier then to engage and get a more stable, longer term building. So try and find space somewhere to get up like a climate cafe, repair cafe, whatever it might be, start doing those initial outreach things and then build from there.
Or you know, working with another group that's already got a space and just have a climate cafe once a week or twice a week, and then keep asking around and maybe someone will come up with.
Yeah, this is what we're doing, and it's true. All our small business owners, they don't pay business rates. We've got no big buildings. This is the thing. We're Malvern. We've got lots of little tiny units, and those guys don't pay business rates. But yeah, so we're using church halls, and we'll keep going until hopefully something comes up. It'd just be nice to get some. Be nice to have a space, because we're trying to put things in garages and store things and zip things back and forth, and it's just like.
It'll come. Patience, all things come, and it does take a while. Don't be too hard on yourselves. This is a 3, 6, 9, 10 month process to get the beginnings of a building, a group in a building. I want to come to checkouts fairly imminently. So John, if you want to have your say and then maybe do your checkout, and during your checkout, you can also say what's going on briefly for your group and anything you want to share. But let's keep it brief, folks, because I think people want to go soon. I'd like to hear from Michelle and Abingdon as well. Ruth said there might be some info there. John, over.
Yeah, I just thought I'd put my hand up because I just want to back up what Nadia was saying, because I feel the same in Oswestry. We're not blessed with masses of empty, massive buildings, and we found it really difficult to try to find any space that we could go into without having to pay rent. And we're getting so impatient to do the things we want to do. We've done some things in the summer, but now it's getting cold and we're going to have to be indoors. So we're sort of feeling like if we want to do the things we're so desperate to do, and we've been waiting years to do them, that we're going to need to actually pay for space to do it in. Otherwise, we're still going to be waiting. And then, of course, all the problems come from worrying about how you're going to pay for the thing. So I do understand where you're coming from, and we're in the same situation. And we are trying other outlets for trying to get our community things going. So. But yeah, we just, yeah, as I said, I need to speak to you really about how we can move forward. But maybe we can do that. Maybe I should come to more meetings, and then I'd get a better idea of how to go forward. But anyway, we're still trying hard, even though we're not really getting anywhere far. But we're hoping things have really boosted in the last month or so.
Right.
We really want to do something now.
Remember, we're building the foundations for a sustainable future, folks, and Rome wasn't built in a day. So, you know, this is building blocks for the future. Who wants to do an update checkout next, and keeping them concise-ish? Who wants to go next? University Challenge. Over to Michelle in Abingdon.
Thanks, Phoenix. Yeah, it's been a difficult time because I disappeared for 3 weeks, doing some activism in London, say no more. And in the meantime, we had our launch, which went well. However, I've come back and everyone's feeling a little bit burnt out, which I hadn't expected, to be honest. And also we've realized that our unincorporated organization is not good enough to sign the license agreement with the museum. For those who don't know, we've got the cafe at the bottom of our museum in Abingdon, which is in the marketplace. And we have it, the license agreement is for a year, it's free. We don't have to pay any utilities. They clean the toilets. All we have to do is use it, have insurance, and sign the license agreement. And unfortunately, our legal working group has made a bit of an error by not actually pursuing a kick, which is basically the very least that's required from the town council to sign this this license for a year. But that's fine. We're going to pause and just focus on the legal requirements for now. And also the other thing that we've realized is our volunteers. We've got about a list of 20 people from the community. I'll round up in a minute. Sorry, Phoenix. We need to think about how we prepare those volunteers for when they are in the centre. And that was also something we hadn't quite worked on. Yeah, so lots of learning, but helpful. We'll share whatever we come up with.
Paul, my only thought there is try and find a group nearby that you might be able to temporarily use their CIC. You know, maybe there's a group somewhere on the CEC network or another one that would temporarily sign.
Yeah, we've tried that, Phoenix. That's what we've been doing.
All right, cool. Okay, who on timescales, if you've got to go fairly soon, please put your hand up now for a quick update checkout. It's hard, I'm gonna make the screen bigger. Who wants to check out update next? Yep, over there to Vicky in sunny Taunton.
I'm working with Carolyn, actually, Carolyn Dare, part of a group of 5, and we just heard today that we've probably got part of a building along with the local Rotary Club, and we've submitted an application to be a charity rather than a CIC, though if that takes too long, we'll do a CIC in the meantime, I guess. Yeah, so things are, we've been using another premises and slowly building a large group. So at the moment, it looks very positive. Thanks for a great session. It's the next thing I'm moving on to, having done the charity registration.
Brilliant. We're expecting amazing things from Taunton, actually. Carolyn's really been helping us on the Trust the People CEC TCP link up group. We always need help with the CEC UK network. If anyone has any spare hour or two that want to help us, the UK network needs help us as well. Who wants to go next? Thank you very much, Vicky.
Joe has got a hand up.
Aquasulis in the lovely town of Bath.
We're fine. We had quite a busy few weeks with the Eco Festival, so it's just really a matter now of trying to get back onto where we were and catch up and keep plodding on and hopefully get there in the end. But yeah, the Eco Festivals was really good, and yeah, so that it was worth putting the effort in. And that was it. Thank you.
Cool.
I'll hand over to Sean in Word. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, as I said, we just started our journey, getting a lot of help from local groups in Lewis, and there's one in Brighton I haven't been to yet, and Guildford. I know the people in Guildford and Godalming, so we're just going to tap into them and find out what they've done and hopefully do the same thing. So quite a lot of support locally, wrote to a lot of people, and there's an amazing number of groups interested in what we're doing, so hopefully we'll get a lot of help. So, and thanks for tonight. Thanks for all your help. Pass on to Joe. Kingston. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for that presentation. All of it was really helpful, and it's nice to see other people around the country as well. We're in Kingston upon Thames, Surrey. We've had a very busy few weeks with this. So a lot of us were involved in August environmental activism, and this was actually something very nice to come to. So a bit of drop in energy. This has really hyped people up a lot. And we've also had a lot of support from our local council, and they've been very keen to get us into a premises, which we've already secured temporary premises anyway. So and the working groups on Telegram have been really helpful as well. So thank you for I recognise a couple of names, so thanks for advice that's been given there. I'll pass to, I don't know, anyone else who needs to go.
Joe, just briefly, where's the temporary space? And I know the town hall had some big empty space.
Oh, okay. So the temporary space is in an old Cath Kidston shop, which is very near Kingston's. For those of you know, Kingston is very near the marketplace, which is a really nice little part of Kingston. We know we can go there for a minimum of 3 months. More likely, it's going to be about 6 months, and we'll probably be able to get in before Christmas.
Brilliant.
So
the hardest part is just to start and get a beachhead and get people in and events and volunteers, and it grows.
Yeah, I mean, it won't be permanent, so we're not going to put too much time into fitting it out. But the idea is we start running meetings and groups there pretty quickly.
Who do you want to pass to, Joe?
I don't know if anyone else needs to go. Aleph Barnett.
You're rushed. Aleph.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah. Yes, unfortunately, Barnet, which is not sunny Barnet at all, is slowly unraveling. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I mean, I've got some ideas and we should meet sort of soonish, but it's pretty dire.
Aleph, I'll let you into a secret. I'm moving to Barnet. I've got
Are you?
place in London, and I've got a big connection there from saving the Free and Barnet Library. So hold on, the recovery is coming.
Great.
For everyone, my plan is to get in an electric car at some point and pop round and see you all for a couple of days of accelerator.
Right.
Drive around, look for empty buildings, work with legal entities, help you with anything, give you lots of advice.
Okay.
You're off again to let you get on with it.
Thank you.
And with Phoenix up the road, nobody's going to have a chance to not get a building in Barnet.
Find every empty building in your town in 2 days. Give me a like. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Aleph. We'll get in touch soon.
Okay.
Over to, do you want to pass to someone, Aleph?
To Deborah. Deborah.
Okay, hi. Yeah, hi. So we've stalled a bit. Everyone sort of disappeared over the summer, including me. And there was a meeting set up last night. I went to it, but nobody else did. So I don't, Josephine organised it. It didn't seem to happen. So that's a bit sad. The other thing is that I haven't extensively looked for buildings recently, but just moving around the bits of Bristol I do, Bristol's not too bad. I mean, I'm sure East Street's got some stuff. I'm sure I can find something for sure. But, you know, we need the team momentum to rebuild. And Mog's very keen. We're going to put the CIC in, aren't we, Mog?
I've got to get back to you on that CIC. I apologise. I've been hyper busy. I've got it in my...
That's fine. I'm off tomorrow, so this is my dedicated painting day, so I'm like, I really need to just paint. So I'm trying to, but yes, tomorrow is I'm doing the CEC form tomorrow.
I will aim to print that out.
So we should have that in place, but we're on a bit of a slow burn, so we'll see. We'll see.
Okay. I'll try and pop to Bristol because there's a lot of network in Bristol that will really come out of the woodwork if I manage to get down there. Fluffy.
Yeah, no, it's that. I mean, I think, and I'm one of those people that will jump in and help, but I'm not a linchpin because I do a lot of other projects. So, you know, I'm happy to help, but I'm not a main person. So, is there anything else you want to say, Mog?
Your checkout or update?
No. Yeah, I'm feeling really excited about it. I think yeah, over the summer kind of it started off with a bang, and we did loads of like really good groups, and it just kind of fizzled out. So yeah, I think once we get the CIC up, I think it might move a little bit more maybe. But yeah, I guess I just I don't feel like there's much support in our group at the minute, but I think that's just because people have just doing what they're doing, and it's been really busy summer. But I know that's going to change, and as soon as we kind of start making some steps, that it's going to start rolling, and we're going to be like, there's so much to do. So I'm still really
I think
excited.
there'll be people that are mobilise if there's someone to mobilise them, basically.
Exactly, yeah. And I really want to get on with that. But yeah, anyway, I'm good. Thanks.
Well,
It was a really good presentation.
Nice. Do you want to pass to anyone else?
Yeah, who hasn't been? John, have you spoken? I'm not sure who has or hasn't.
John started, yeah. Stick your hand up if you haven't been. Help us out.
Yeah,
Stephen, over in the land of the Bard.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I guess we're in the place that some others are in, kind of just looking for a building. I mean, Stratford, I think from the conversations we've had, everyone seems to be quite confident that their buildings will be taken up by someone. We've written to a couple of people, no responses yet. I'm just wondering a little bit if we're being slightly too picky, kind of. I mean, there's a bit of a trade-off, you know, you want the place bang on the high street where you'll get the maximum kind of impact, you'll get the maximum number of people walking past your hub. But on the other hand, you're more likely to get a place that's not bang in the center, that's maybe got some issues. Like, I mean, there's a couple of places that we've talked about where there's going to be some building work going on, maybe on the floor above, which I don't know, that could be pretty bad for the viability of the place if it's too bad, if it's too unpleasant. But I mean, no one wants to sit around and have a climate chat if there's drilling going on right above you. So yeah, we've kind of got those issues a little bit at the moment. But apart from that, I think it's quite good. We've got a good team. We've got the councils are backing us. We've got 10,000, a grant of 10,000 from the county council. So yeah, kind of feeling a bit of pressure to find a building soon, really, because we've got a bit of money and we've got support. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, who's next on the Magic Roundabout University Challenge? Are we going to sunny Preston or sunny Farnham Way? Debs.
Maybe keep things because we're running low.
Yeah, keep it concise. We go. Debs.
Yeah, I think we're just in the same position as John and Nadia and Stephen, just building wise and that really. Like council don't have none at a town centre, so it's like a case of thinking, well, will we be better community embedded in the community and that. So yeah, but other than that, it's been quiet this week really. That's it. It's my update.
Okay.
I've got a job as well. Just got to share that. A real job.
Mary, who's next? Who's the last few? Rover. Mary.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm just really struck by how many more people we're getting to these meetings and how much more is going on, and that's fantastic. And the more we can get together and share things and encourage each other, it's really going to grow. So really nice to see everyone. Really good meeting. Thank you. Back to Phoenix or Ruth.
Ruth and
no.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo Mary. Yeah, it's a good meeting. Henry was very useful and we'd love to see more.
Who else? Anyone else for finalise and check out? So, anyone else? Any more for any more? Or well, unless you're sticking your hands up now. Kestrel, waving goodbye.
Just wanted to say bye. Really, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Just to say briefly, give me 30 seconds, and I'll try and cue up some music because we have a long tradition here at the Climate Emergency Centres that some of you have been doing 6 or 8 hour Zooms. And what you actually need is to get up out of your seats and start